This was the commercial truck in 1953 that hauled all your freight and your cars from the dealers to the dealers from the manufacturer, even though it looks like a little truck by today's standards.
Welcome back to Christina's Garage, Gearhead in Training. It's the final day of PRI 2024. Let's go check out some cool cars today. You guys met John yesterday. He gave us a little explanation of what kind of racing he does. Today, I wanted for him to kind of tell us about his car.
Yeah, so we got a brand new 2024 WyoTech race cars here. It's an all carbon body. I mean, the design and the professionalism that goes into this build is unheard of, really. We got great partners on board with Holley EFI, Racepack, VP Racing Fuels. Got the brake man on here as well, a Bruzy, and of course, an SDPC Raceshop engine. Obviously, we're gonna highlight the engine here. This is a 1,340 horsepower conventional headed engine. This thing's gonna be running in top dragster and in super comp NHRA style with a little bit of bracket racing involved here and there.
In terms of, because I don't know much about drag cars in general, I do know that like this obviously looks different than kind of, I know that some people do like classic car drag racing, there's funny car drag racing. These go extremely fast in comparison to all of those, right?
Yes, ma'am. This one's here going to be going about 680s in the quarter mile. So just shy of 200 miles an hour. And so it's definitely going to be accelerating hard, but we're looking forward to that. And all this is going to be, like I said, all NHRA. So if you check out NHRA.com and it breaks down their classes, and you can see what we're doing.
This is Nick. I was walking by the booth and I stopped. I'm like, what the heck is this? It is so cool. I have no idea what kind of racing it does or anything about it. So would you mind explaining?
So I do stick shift drag racing. It's a 1991 S10. It's the fastest stick car in the world right now. So,
like, how do you even get to that point? Like,
a lot of broken parts, a lot of money spent, and a lot of determination. Basically, the failures, it teaches you everything you need to know. So, yeah, a lot of good people behind the truck too. Like my engine builder, I got the guys from WyoTech, all my people that come with me everywhere we go racing. Like, if it wasn't for them, I couldn't do what I do with the truck. So.
Do you race it against other trucks? Because I've seen
cars.
Okay.
Everyone in our class has a car. I'm literally the only truck. So it's fun. It's a lot
awesome.
of fun.
My husband actually had an 89 S10.
Nice.
And he sold it, and then the person he sold it to smashed it, totaled it, so now he can't get it back.
I totaled one of these. I hit a tree 4 years ago, 2020. I was doing a little bit of racing and hit a tree like 130 mile an hour and broke my arm in half. Yeah, and then after that, I, like 2-3 weeks went by and I started building this with one arm.
Wow.
The reason why I started building this truck, I was racing another one for a long time, and I had this guy, Austin Detman. He was just one of my best friends. He worked for me for a while. He ended up losing his life to a motorcycle accident, and we were super, super close at the time. So, like, you know, just it was like a tribute to his life. He was a wild cat. He was a fun dude. I really miss the guy. And we've just been out here slaying it with this truck in honor of him.
I'm going to get emotional because that's...
I try not to get like too into detail because like it gets me choked up big time. I really miss the kid. He was a good person.
What better way to keep his memory alive?
100%.
I'm going to get emotional. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
This is Bruce. Would you mind sharing what this car is and what kind of racing that it does?
Sure, no problem. This is a 1958 Plymouth Fury built by Mcilvain Race Cars. It is a top sportsman / 470 / quick car. It has a 540 wedge built by Indy cylinder heads with an F3 112 Pro Charger producing about 2,000 horsepower. We started to build about 2 years ago. Just finished it up literally on Monday night about 9 o'clock, loaded it in the trailer to drag it in here for the show. Been working with Indy cylinder heads and Mcilvains for a long time. Did a lot of cars with them. Had a lot of luck with it. We're looking to do the Verge Series this year to get our feet wet in that class. My kids just jumped out of junior dragsters here within the last few years. I'm looking forward to getting them down in the car. Somebody that can actually drive. I'm getting old, can't see very well anymore, so they should do pretty well in it. Had a lot of support from Indy Cylinder Head, a lot of support from Mcilvain race cars, and actually getting some really good support from Pro Charger now. They're showing some real interest in the car. So we're probably going to try to hit about maybe 15 races with it this year. And my daughter's actually driving Dragster this year too, so we should be, hopefully we can get into a final round together. So
that would be really cool.
It'd be a lot of
Legacy.
fun.
If you guys follow my stuff, I love Legacy stuff. I got into this because of my dad.
Oh,
So
cool, great.
It's really cool to especially hear about that. And there's so many different types of drag racing.
Mm-hmm.
The type that you do, like, does it differ? Like, I'm so new to all this stuff. So
Well, you've got bracket racing, which, long story short, to help make it even, you get a guy running 10 seconds versus a guy running 9 seconds. They'll let the 10-second guy go but 1 second earlier than the 9-second guy, so in theory you'll make it to the end at the same time. But it's whoever cuts the best light, runs closer to their projected time, like they're dialing on the side of the car, is how it wins. It's called bracket racing. And I mean, I'll still do that with this car. I'm not afraid to do that. This is more of a quick car, but you still kind of bracket race with a quick car. The 470 is everyone tries to run 4.7 seconds in the 8th mile, and they run with a Pro tree, which all yellow go like the Pro guys do. There's a lot to sit down and explain it out exactly how it is. Would literally take an hour, but you get the idea. They try to make it to where it's the driver rather than just the car. I mean, you got to have a good car, but it's the guy behind the wheels will make bracket racing and/or 470 index racing. It's the skill comes from the driver, and when most of the drivers these days, they don't have money, they don't have these gigantic bank accounts. They're trying to do everything themselves, so they have to be very good mechanics as well. So you have to know your car, you have to know what it's going to do, and you have to be pretty good at literally looking over at a guy when you're going 170 mile an hour. You have to look over at him and see if you're catching him, if you're around him, or if you're not going to catch him, to know if you're going to hit the brakes or whatever you got to do. It ain't just whoever gets there at the end first wins. It don't work that way.
interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a lot of fun, and it takes the rich guys out of the game, and puts the good guys, the guys who actually can drive a race car. There's the guys who are going to win. Money does not win this sport. It's the driver, in my personal opinion.
This is Dennis. I was walking by, and this is a really cool truck. Would you mind telling me what it is and what it's used for?
Well, it's kind of a weird deal. This is the 18-wheeler of the day. This is the commercial 18-wheeler over the road. So these trucks, it's a 1953 GMC, cab over engine, so it's called a COE. That's what they go by. They've got half tons, 1 tons. These things went way up 8-ton type trucks. So this was the commercial truck in 1953 that hauled all your freight and your cars from the dealers to the dealers from the manufacturer, even though it looks like a little truck by today's standards. So I just took a 1953 commercial truck and made a hot rod out of it.
That's awesome.
It is. So it's got, it's got 18-wheeler wheels, but that's as far as that goes. It's just on a 1-ton type chassis, like a dually. You would see a dually, except I'm a drag racer. So underneath this cab is a 520 cubic inch big block Chevy, about 700 horsepower.
Wow.
So it's really a drag car, kind of a street hot rod with a truck cab on it.
Do you actually drag race this one?
This truck is made, I've probably at this point got 5 miles on it. It's brand new.
Wow.
I've been 5 years. I started it 5 years ago, almost to the month, and it got put aside. Most of those 5 years it sat collecting dust because I just didn't have time to work on it. But I dug it back out and got it finished for this show. And when we get back, I probably won't really drag race it, but I will tow with it. I'm going to build a really nice Art Deco style trailer to pull behind it, like a car hauling trailer.
Yeah.
It's got the power to haul a load, so I can put 2 or 3 cars behind it. It's got a gooseneck, so I can have a gooseneck type trailer. So not so much drag racing, but if I want to stop at a stoplight and smoke the 4-back tires, it will smoke the 4-back tires.
Is that what they call a sleeper?
Yeah, it would very much be a sleeper. Nobody would expect what it's got.
This is Gabe with PFC Brakes. I wanted him to kind of go over what this car is, because some of us have seen it before. but we might not know what it is or how it works.
Yeah, so this is Alex Palou's Indy car from the 2024 season. He obviously won the championship this year and drove a lot of races in this beautiful American Legion livery, which matches our company's colors and was a very nice touch for the booth. But yeah, ridiculous car, very fast, and very capable as well. With oval races, not a lot of braking happens. With us being the sole supplier, the oval races are obviously a little bit less hard on the brakes. But then you take it to a road course, street courses, stuff like that, and the streets of Detroit, St. Pete, and you're really going to be hammering on the brakes. So it's nice to have the IndyCar deal. We're really happy to be working with such a good company, and to see such an intricate car in our booth and attract a lot of people is very exciting. So
well, an IndyCar, as you said, it can do either in a circle or like through
road
actual
course.
towns.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and that gets really intricate. And then you run into road courses on real racetracks, or road courses in the middle of a city, which is bumps, potholes, manhole covers, stuff like that, and that all plays a role in how the car performs as well, and we have to pay attention to that too. As a supplier of a important part on the car, how is that going to affect how these drivers are, having the cars react and stuff like that.
And you guys do brakes on more than just this Indy
More
car.
than just this, yeah. So every Indy car on the field, it's homologated, they have to run PFC brakes, our full carbon system. Carbon rotors, carbon pads, and then 6-piston calipers.
What makes them so different to use on Indy cars versus other?
Yeah, so Indy cars really need that carbon. They are very, very fast cars, generate a lot of heat when they stop, and carbon is very good at handling heat. You can get carbon very, very hot compared to an iron rotor or a steel rotor, which is what we normally use on our road cars, our street course cars like GT cars, sports cars, things like that, are normally iron and steel rotors, but when you get up to a level like this, they're generating thousands of degrees in temperature, and you really need that carbon to soak up a lot of that heat.
This is Mike with Strange Oval. I've been hearing about different cars and have seen a couple of these. Would you mind explaining what it is and what kind of racing it does?
Yeah, so this is a micro sprint. This particular car will be run at Tulsa Shootout here in a few weeks. Pretty popular division, runs across the country, very fast, lightweight car. Very exciting, very elbows up style racing. Attracts a large, broad audience of racers. In this particular case, this is Ricky Thornton Jr., who drives this car, who's a pretty well-known dirt late model driver, actually won the Lucas Oil Championship this season. This is his fun toy, so he does this a few times throughout the year to have fun because it's exciting and eventful. Typically runs pretty well. Last year he was really good at the Tulsa Shootout in multiple divisions. He really enjoys doing it. Something fun to go do.
I love that.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about the actual car itself? And because you guys have your company's parts on it as well.
Yeah, we build some components for these. Primarily all we do with this style car is suspension components. We build premium torsion bars. This particular car is a 10J chassis. There's multiple chassis builders throughout the country, and it's growing to it's really taken off the last few years where there's quite a few chassis builders now, and they're building some really nice stuff.
This is David with Wilwood Brakes, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about this car. What is it? Because I've seen sprint cars. This is really big.
Yeah, well, this particular vehicle here has got a lot of history to it. So Davey Hamilton, which is a well-respected IndyCar driver, this is his dad, Ken Hamilton, 83 years old, still races this day, and his cars have always been known as the Pink Lady. And the car itself is a West Coast super modified, but it's a very iconic car. If you ever look it up, the Pink Lady, a lot of history. Been a long time Wilwood supporter, and we had the opportunity to put that car in this booth this year.
Well, the color really stood out to me. I'm
Yes.
like, hey, I want to know more about it. So what kind of racing specifically does it do?
This car basically is an oval pavement car.
Okay.
End of story, mainly because everything is on the left-hand side. As you see, the engine's hanging off, your legs are right next to it. It's a really odd-looking vehicle, but they're just locked down. It's like a slot car. They just run around, just locked down. Great racing.
Cool. And could you tell me a little bit more about the actual build of the car, just kind of basic?
So this one here, this chassis here, it's got a lot of history. I think it's probably built in the late 80s, which is still a very competitive car. But again, it's a West Coast super modified, which is quite different than the East Coast version. So it really runs in the Northern California, Idaho, out in that neighborhood. But it's just and actually the sister car to this, which was Davy's car, when he used to run at Phoenix, and I'm going to just guess here a little bit, but I'm going to say it was in the late 80s when they ran there. It qualified fast enough at that time to qualify for the IndyCar race that was there in that same time frame of year. That's how fast they go.
Is it updated since then, or are they
Yeah, there's been slight modifications based on tires, how they've evolved, suspension geometry. But yeah, but the basic car is similar, but wings have evolved, so there has been gradual updates of the car.
This is Scott, and this is his race car. Would you mind explaining, first off, what is it for, and then tell me a little bit more about it?
Well, it's for going in circles, dirt track racing, and it's a car that J2 Race Cars, Chris Jackson, put together. It's going to race it out in Vado at the Wild West Shootout. It's a 3-link car, so if you're up on your racing, there's all sorts of different suspension, but it's a 3-link car, and going to race in the X-Mod class. It's also like a USRA, kind of built like a USRA B-Mod, and it's a fun car to drive. It was just went through this winter, so it's got all the upgrades to make a guy faster, to go in a circle faster, and it's out here at the Freedom Race Lifts booth, kind of showing off their jacks.
I'm really new to any kind of racing, so when I walked up, the panels are different than a lot of race cars that I see, and then you have the roll cage and all the other things. Like it's kind of a small little space for you to be able to see out of, and being on a dirt track, I'm sure you get dirt all in your face all the time. How do you work with visibility then if dirt's kicking up?
Well, yeah, on our helmets, you obviously got a face mask, and then and we got tear off, so when the mud hits, you just rip a tear off. And I'm sure there's a lot of different ways that people do it. I think some people got automated ones that are cleaning their mask or whatever. And but yeah, you're kind of looking as far down the track as you can see, and sometimes a little bit around the corner so you know what's coming.
This is Devin. I think this car looks really cool.
Thank you.
I just don't know what it is or what it does. So would you mind explaining?
Sure. No, not at all. No problem at all. It's a 93 Mustang convertible, LX, the Fox body is what they're known as. We do drag and drive, right? So hot rod drag week, sick week. So the concept behind it is it's drag racing, but you drive the car itself in between tracks, a couple 100 miles in between each other. So it's 5 days of racing, right? So we have an event coming up in January. It's called Sick Week. It starts at South Georgia Motorsports Park on, I don't remember the days, well, let's just say Monday, right? So Monday is day 1, South Georgia Motorsports Park. Day 2 is at Bradenton, Florida. So what we have to do is we have to get in the car, so we make our passes, turn in a time slip that you're happy with, then you get in the car and you drive it 250, 300 miles, and we pull a miniature trailer behind it. So there's I have a 4x6 enclosed trailer that goes behind this thing, and it's got spare parts in it. We change the wheels and whatnot, and it's one of the main reasons why we have the air jacks on the car. So we wind up having to get underneath the car twice a day. So we take the belly pans off the bottom of the car, we change the rear tires and wheels, fuel pump stuff, there's a bunch of little stuff that goes on underneath the car. So we jack it up, swap it over, hook it up to the trailer, hit the road. They give you a couple checkpoints that you got to stop at, take pictures at and say hello. Most of them are pretty cool, like little race car stuff or ice cream shops or old nostalgic stuff. You drive, get a hotel, next morning, wake up, drive to the racetrack in the car. The big trailer and truck is at day 1. So it's pretty awesome because you drive away from the racetrack the first time, and you're like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. You know what I mean? Are we gonna make it? And then eventually, so you got 300 mile drive on day 1, so you get 150 miles in, and you're like, all right, well, it's closer to just keep going than it is to turn around. So it's a lot different style of racing, and you do that for 5 days. So
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah,
so it's cool. Learn
yeah,
something new
yeah.
today.
So it's It started like a long, probably about 20 years ago or so, with Hot Rod Magazine, Hot Rod Drag Week.
Okay.
So, and in the last like 5-ish years, it's grown exponentially. It's blown up. So, this car, I've owned it for 22 years, and it has always been a street car. It'll always be a street car. I don't really care for something I can't get in and like drive around town. And so, like me and my wife, we go to dinner in it. We go, we do all types of stuff in this thing. So. This is a really radical version of a drag and drive car. So, and there's some here that are even more radical. This one just happens to be faster than usually most of those more radical looking
Just a little bit faster.
Yeah, yep.
Would you mind telling me a little bit, like from a newbie perspective,
Sure.
About the build? Like what kind of stuff do you have on it and stuff
Sure.
like that?
So it's it's a 93 Mustang convertible. Top still works, which is ideal for what we do, because like if it's nice out, you put the top down and you don't like roast to death inside of this thing, right? So, because there's no air conditioning, there's no heat, there's no wipers, there's none of that stuff. 540 cubic inch big block Chevrolet built by PRI Racing Engines. It's twin 88 millimeter turbos from HPT Turbos right over there. 3-speed transmission, turbo 400, 9-inch rear, all fabricated. My chassis guy, Performance Fab, built the whole car. He built the rear end housing. And a big group of friends helped with this one. So like the powder coat was all done by a good friend of ours. The paint was done by a good friend of ours. So Jake Tinsley did all the powder coat and all the body work. And like the whole chassis is powder coated. Like he powder coated inside of here, like the whole thing, like the whole car itself was powder coated. And then the exterior of the body was painted. So this is about as good, as close as you get to like a real full restoration of a convertible Mustang. So car makes right around 3,000 horsepower.
That's a lot.
Yeah. We it's on methanol, right? So like when we race it on methanol, but this car has 2 completely independent fuel systems. So we race it on alcohol or methanol, and we drive it on pump gas. So like I drive it on 87 octane, cheapest crap we got.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So is there like a switch or something that switches
Well, so
over?
a couple different ways you could do it. My business is HCR Innovations. We wire and plumb and tune race cars. Like that's what we do. And we use nothing but Holley EFI. And Holley does all of it. Well, the way I programmed it, Holley controls all of it automatically. So.
And it'll switch over.
Oh, yeah. So like we can be driving down the road on 93, and if you decide to put your foot in it, which you don't want to do, because this car on the road is not like it's easier to wreck this car like 600 horsepower than it is to wreck like a new Corvette at 600 horsepower, because a new Corvette's like kind of built to bend and twist and kind of go over crappy roads, where this is not meant to really move. It rides like a wagon with square wheels. So, but no, Holley EFI controls all of it automatically if we want. So like if you roll your foot in the throttle, it'll start to switch the car over from 93 or 87 or really 87 to 93 to flex fuel. We run on all 3 fuels in this car. So like whatever's at the pump it in there, fill up the tank, and drive it. And then when we race it on alcohol. So it's if it wasn't for Holley doing what they do or having what they have inside of their software, and I've got a lot of experience with it, this thing would be a lot more cumbersome. So this is really a really easy, as hard as it is to grasp that like something that makes 3,000 horsepower is easy to drive and race, this is actually a really easy to drive and race car. So like it doesn't require a boatload of, a lot of work in between like driving and racing.
Because you would think it would, yeah.
Well, so that's kind of why my business is what it is. Like I've done this for so long that you learn the things that like suck and you take those away from customers, right? So like we can program these cars to do so many different things with all the electronics that are available to us today. Plus like the way you wire them, the way you plumb them, the way you set these cars up, you have to put a lot of forethought in it to do this type of racing. So normally you go to a racetrack and you got your big truck and trailer, 3 or 4 of your buddies are there, and you've got all the tools you could need and plenty of time. This, you may break something pretty substantial on the side of the highway. And you got to go into your little mini trailer and get it. And hope that you got it, or like somebody guys, knock on metal, we haven't really broke anything major on the side of the road, which has been good. But like we've ran lash on the valves in like the parking lot of a bar You know what I mean? Like we've had, you know, you change the oil in the parking lot of the hotel. You know, it's pretty wild. Like we've already had, we've called up Uber to pick up car parts from like an O'Reilly's and bring them to us. Like it's a very different way of racing. It's a lot of fun, and I think that as far as drag racing goes, I believe drag and drive is going to wind up being the thing over the next probably 5 to 10 years that grows exponentially, because you walk around here and you look and you see so many race cars and they get pushed everywhere. And I got tons of customers that I work with that have race cars, and you push them to the staging lanes and you fire them up, and then they do a burnout and they make a pass and then you push them back. You spend $300,000-$400,000 building a car that you only get to spend 15 minutes a month in. This thing we spend 15 minutes in traffic just to try to get to the gas station. You know what I mean? So it's you get to enjoy it a little bit more. So it's fun. It's definitely different. It's fun. And I don't think I'm going to stop doing it until I, you know, can't afford to, I guess, anymore. I don't know.
This is Zach. Would you mind telling us about this build, what it is, and what it's for?
Yeah, man. So we built a 2016 Dodge Charger. It's a RT base model, so it's, you know, it's a 5.7 Hemi, but with none of the goodies that the 392 and the Scat Pack have. And the entire idea behind it was, you know, we have a street car that's a daily driver. It's kind of boring, and so we spiced it up a little bit with a twin turbo kit.
Do you have any favorite parts about it?
So I mean, I'm a little biased because I work for the company, but our Turbosmart 6262s on it are pretty amazing. They sound good, have a really good transient response time, and they're just a really good all-around turbocharger for any application.
What makes it different than other, because I don't know much about turbos anyway, what makes it different than other?
So normally your turbochargers are going to have a good top end, mid-range, and as well as low range, but, well, that's what they target at least, but some companies fall short in a little bit of that. But for us, you know, we tested them against other turbocharger manufacturers in that same exact size class, and ours have either overspooled the smaller turbo, or our larger ones have either overspooled the smaller turbochargers, or they've been exactly on par with their size class. So, but as far as what we've tested ourselves, they've been overperforming pretty much everyone.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. I am bummed that today is the last day of PRI. Fortunately though, I did get some extra footage. I will be posting some more videos the weeks to come. Stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next week.